Welcome to the Big Fellas Podcast, where we chop it up about all things past, present, and future about the game of basketball. Where facts, stats, and context reign supreme.
That is blasphemous!
Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. Get ready to learn from players, coaches, and fans from all levels of the game and see the court in a brand new way. And now, fresh off the sidelines, here's your host, John Hartofilis.
What it do, fellas, and welcome to the Big Fellas Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, JH, coming to you from New York City, the mecca of basketball. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Kyle McAlarney, player development consultant for Priority Sports and Entertainment. I spoke with Kyle about breaking the all-time points record on Staten Island, hitting a 4-point play to win a playoff game, and sparking a successful career at the world's premier sports agency. We've got a good one in store for you today, fellas. Episode number 49, Kyle McAlarney, player development consultant. Hi, Coach Kyle. What's up?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm really looking forward to it. We obviously met through a mutual connection with Mr. Gannon, who I met from coaching at Xavier High School, was telling me, he was raving about, all about both your great career and told me a bunch of really cool stories about coaching against you. So I knew I had to have you on.
Anytime. And as I said before, Coach Gannon is a legend where I'm from and probably, if not the nicest, one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. And I love the Xavier program too. I was an athletic director in the CHSAA and a head coach for 2 years at Moore Catholic. And the Xavier guys were always great to me and to my program. So big fan of Xavier.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And just to get started, I wanted to take it back to, one of the biggest compliments someone can get is being a hard worker. And the first thing Mr. Gannon told me about you was he said you were the biggest gym rat he'd ever seen. And he's seen a lot of high-level basketball. So when it comes to waking up at 5:30 in the morning, having the keys to the gym, what did that look like for you and just always trying to get better?
So the story goes like this, that when I think I was a freshman in high school, we used to practice before school. So we used to start practice at 5:30 in the morning. And I remember reading an article about Sebastian Telfair at the time, who was the best player in New York City. And he used to work out at 6 a.m. before school every single day. So when the season ended, I told my father that if I could have access to a gym, that I would do that as well. And my father very simply, as only my father can, responded by saying, just ask. And so I asked my athletic director, who actually was my coach at the time, and he said, I will give you the keys to the gym for a 2-week trial period. You need to be in here every single day at 5 a.m. or else I'm taking them away. If anything is out of order, if anybody else is with you, I'm taking them away. And I actually still have those keys to this day. And waking up that early, while some would shy away from it and want to sleep in, for me, it's a matter of desire. And I say this to kids all the time, that just because you're waking up early and working out first thing in the morning before school doesn't mean you're doing more than the kid who works out after school. What you're doing by waking up early is you're adding more time to your day. So after school now, if you just go home and sit on your butt and you don't do anything, then you're no better than the kid who works out after school. So what I did, now, yes, I did wake up at 4:15, 4 a.m. sometimes, and I was in there every single morning, 2 hours before school. Was after school, I worked out again. And by the end of the week, after a 5-day week, I had 10 workouts compared to most guys 5. And I think by waking up early, you're adding more time to your day, but, you have to take advantage of the time left over after that.
100%. And Kobe has an interesting story about that too, and talking about why he wakes up super early, because he said, even if someone's more talented than you, if you keep on progressing at a faster pace than them, at some point you're going to pass them. And Mr. Gannon had asked me too, which I thought was funny, was to ask you about a certain game when you hit against his team. And if you can kind of tell us a little bit about that, I thought that was really funny. So
it was in the Staten Island High School League. I believe it was the quarterfinals. It was my senior year, and it was in front of essentially, the Staten Island High School basketball tournament. Different than other boroughs, Staten Island is very insular, and it's unique in that regard. And what makes it a great place to grow up and play high school basketball is that the rivalries are pretty cemented in there, and everybody comes out to watch. It's sort of like a small town atmosphere in that sense. So everybody was there. I think it was the quarterfinals. We were down a few points, and I was getting double, triple team the whole game. And I drove to my right, I believe, and went to pull up for a three, got fouled, and the guy kind of brought my right arm down, and I switched it to my left, and I shot it with my left, and I got an N1-3. So
That'll definitely be the kind of shot that has someone talking way after the fact. And Mr. Gannon was very adamant in me asking you that question, which I
I
thought was
can
really funny.
I can still hear Coach Gannon's voice on the sidelines when I think about it. He's the best. He's the best.
Obviously, after a stellar high school career, I'd imagine a lot of schools were recruiting you. What was it kind of like in making the decision to end up going to Notre Dame and navigating that process?
So it was difficult. It was difficult. A lot was put on my shoulders. I was getting recruited by a lot of schools, and it came on very quickly. Every Ivy League school wanted me. Stanford, Wake Forest, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, all the Ivy League schools, all the high academic schools, including obviously Notre Dame. But then I also had some ACC schools and some other Big East schools that offered me full scholarships. And I narrowed it down to really four schools: Notre Dame, North Carolina State, Wake Forest, and St. John's. I will be honest with you that I wanted to go to Columbia, the Ivy League school, Columbia, up in Manhattan. But unfortunately, Ivy League schools can't offer full scholarships, full athletic scholarships. So my parents, blue collar workers, I didn't want to put them in that position. So I opted to go. I opted not to go there. So what it came down to for me though, man, was at Notre Dame, I felt I had the best chance to play as a freshman. And I give that advice to young players all the time is go where you're going to play, because you're going to be happier there, or where you have a chance to play, a chance to compete for playing time. Because you'll see a lot now in college, there's a lot going on in the transfer market. Players are very quick to switch teams and transfer. And I think the reason is because they don't have a good grip on reality. And so I think for young players, and this was the case for me, go somewhere where you're going to play, or at least have the opportunity to play right away. And everyone likes to peg it on me that, my last name is McAlarney, right? I'm an Irish Catholic kid from Staten Island, New York. And of course, my family dreamed about going to Notre Dame, but I didn't dream about going there. I just wanted to play basketball at a high level. For me, it was the opportunity to play right away.
Go to the school that's the best fit for you, because everyone's different, whether it's academically or the environment or financially. There's a million different reasons to why you need to find the right fit for you, instead of just the school that sounds better in that, maybe in that regard.
No doubt. And the other thing that I'll say here too, man, is a lot of players will put too much faith in the coach. I talk about confidence in this regard. Like when you get your confidence from somebody else, then somebody else can take it away. And when you're making a decision about where to go to school, when you leave it up to, or you put it, I'm going to this school because of this coach, that's the wrong reason. And the reason why is because you spend 95% of your time with your college teammates. And so when you go on visits to schools or whatnot, it's important to get a feel of the other students, of the other student athletes, and who you're going to be spending your time with, and not make the decision based on who the coach is, because coaches come and go. And frankly, you're not spending the majority of time with them.
Transitioning to after you were done with college, making a run at being a professional player, what did that summer look like with you trying out with the Clippers, and that whole process of deciding, trying to make that NBA dream come true, playing overseas? What was it like juggling that?
Nerve-wracking. This is something that I've worked for and put my entire life behind, but also exciting and proud at the same time. So I got a chance to go play summer league with the Los Angeles Clippers, and it was an unbelievable experience. And I played really well. I thought I did everything that I had to do in order to make the training camp roster. Unfortunately, well-known veteran, who I won't say his name, decided to come out of retirement, and they decided to sign him as opposed to me. So from there, I took my professional career elsewhere. It was scary. It was nerve-wracking, but I had made the decision that, basketball was my life. And I at that point, I had given so much to the game that I wanted to continue down that path. And I wanted to see how far I could take it, and how good of a player I could become.
Super interesting stuff in terms of wrestling with that decision, in terms of how you're going to navigate that. Once you play professionally, I noticed that you had to stop in Greece, and me being Greek American, I was curious to know about what the culture shock was like for you going from the States and playing over there in Greece.
It was big time culture shock, big time. And everybody likes to talk about the culture shock, but the real struggle is being by yourself. I was by myself most of the time. Holidays and birthdays and weddings and family get-togethers, and you're so far away, literally thousands of miles away, and that's hard. That's hard on anybody at any age. So that initially, that's the hardest thing to deal with. Once you let your guard down and you open up your mind a little bit, you're able to experience different cultures, different people, learn some new languages and whatnot. And it was a blast. I actually cherished my time over there, and specifically in Greece. The food was phenomenal. The people were extremely hospitable. The weather was incredible. I still every now and again fall into the habit of taking 2-hour coffee breaks in the middle of the day, like the Greeks often do. But I absolutely loved my time over there.
So that's great. And then when you were playing professionally in France, you were there for a really long time. What was it like getting to finally have some consistency
So
overseas?
playing professional basketball, it's very rare to have any sort of consistency with your life. You're often living out of a suitcase. When I got to France, to my third year in France, my wife at the time and we had the opportunity to go to Spain, which probably would have led to me playing at a higher level and earning more money long term, but it was a little bit risky. And we liked France, we liked the city that we were in, and the team was offering me a 2-year contract, and the city loved me, and I just kind of felt really at home there. And we just felt this is a great place for us to start a family, and let's sort of take control over this part of my life, which most players don't have control of. And we felt it was in our best interest to stay there and start to build our family. And from there, I played in France another 4 or 5 years, loved it. And that decision changed my life because it allowed us to have more stability, which obviously is very important when starting a family. And, we almost had a second home there.
So important to be able to have that during a period of obviously chasing your dream and playing professionally. Off that point though, when did you really realize you wanted to get back into coaching and going back to your alma mater, more Catholic, and really
So
embracing that?
I always knew I wanted to coach at some level. Since I was about 14 years old, I always worked with young players privately, via skill instruction and private instruction and training. And I've been doing that for every off season since I was about 14 years old. And I kept doing it every single off season while I was playing, even professionally. So I always knew I wanted to coach, and I always loved speaking to players and working with players. And when I was probably 30 years old and my body started to get a little more sore and tired than it normally did, I started to think about what that process would look like. And I wasn't going to stop playing just for any run-of-the-mill job. I had a family to support, so it was really important to me that it was something stable. And sort of the timing of things at my alma mater just kind of lined up, and the head coaching position opened up as well as the athletic director position. And that's where I used to still go work out. And the principal came up to me one day mid-workout and asked me if I'd be interested. I said yes, and I did a few rounds of interviews, and they offered me the position, where I stayed for 2 years. And it was an incredible experience. It was a big time adjustment for me, playing professionally and then going to coach at high school basketball. It was a huge adjustment for me, but I learned so much. I'm grateful for those 2 years because that led me to be where I am right now.
Of course, it must have been such a great learning experience for you. And it's funny because during those 2 years, I was an 18 to 19-year-old assistant coach at Xavier, and I definitely had seen you at one of those games, but obviously didn't think we'd be recording a podcast together in the next year or so. So that's really funny to think about. Off that point, how has the pandemic kind of made you shift gears into focusing so much on priority sports entertainment? And what does that side of your life now look like?
So I'll give you how this happened. Was one of my best friends who was a walk-on at Notre Dame with me, who I lived with my senior year. is an agent, basketball agent with Priority Sports. And last year, before the summer, he had told me that one of their biggest clients, Gordon Hayward, who's now with the Charlotte Hornets, was looking for someone to work with privately on the East Coast while he was still up in Boston, and asked if I would be interested. And I said, of course I'd be interested. I have a full-time job here at More Catholic. If I could juggle that with it, I'd be more than happy to. So I went up to Boston and I worked with Gordon in front of Danny Ainge in the front office and the coaching staff. And Gordon loved it. He loved me and took a liking to me. And I started to go up to Boston a lot and watched every game and gave him notes on every game and spoke to him almost every day, and developed a really good relationship with not just him, but the CEO of the company, Mark Bartelstein, who is the best sports agent ever, and developed a really good relationship with him. And then probably in the spring, just before the pandemic hit, conversations evolved, and Mark Bartelstein sort of asked me if I'd be willing to join the company full time, because he needs somebody that the players can call other than him at 11 o'clock at night after their games. I thought it was an amazing opportunity. So essentially, I'm here now with Priority Sports. I'm based out of Chicago, but my role is sort of unique. I am sort of in charge of skill development and the training of the entire company, all of our clients. We have, I would say, give or take, about 100 professional clients, half in the NBA, half internationally. I'm working to represent players next year as well. So my role is kind of unique. But when the pandemic hit, we were preparing 9 guys for the NBA draft. We had 9 players coming out of college to enter into the NBA draft. Normally we would bring them to a centralized location and work with them there every single day. Obviously, because of the pandemic, we were unable to do that. So I had to kind of manage it virtually and work with them virtually, as well as sort of be in communication with their own trainers in their own hometown and oversee what the trainers were doing with these guys every single day. It was really, really challenging, difficult. I had to travel during the pandemic a lot to go see these guys. But, we managed to do it. And now all of our guys are off in training camp and doing well. And through the pandemic, I had to move out here. But this role does not come around a lot. And it's something, when I was 14 and I started to work with players, I didn't know where it would take me. I always thought that I would go the traditional coaching route. But this is something that I truly love, because I get to really connect with players at a high level and help them out more so than a coach can. And I love it.
That's great. And you talking about how you're able to help in a different way than a coach could. Where do you see the biggest strength in terms of how you're able to communicate with them and make them better players? What do you see as like your strength, your strong suit in that?
I'm honest. And I worry sometimes that it would turn a player off, but it's yet to happen. And I think, I'm honest because I played almost a decade professionally, and I played at Notre Dame in the Big East, and I was first team all Big East. So I do bring that credibility as a player, but I'm as honest as I can be with these guys. I tell them when they're being soft. I tell them when they're doing too much. I tell them when they're doing too little. I call it like I see it, and I try and do it in a way, I don't call it like I see it and leave them where they are. If I'm going to criticize them or tell them that I disagree with something that they're doing, then I also have to offer some sort of solution. And that's where I think I win, because I'm honest. And if they initially take it in a defensive way, I'm able to kind of correct that and help them see that all I'm trying to do is help them. I don't want credit when they're doing well. I don't want spotlight. I just want to be the guy in the background, just whispering in their ear. And so I think my honesty oftentimes probably a little blunt, probably a little like, whoa, what did he just say? But I think that helps me. And I can't ignore the fact that, a lot of people who work on my side of the industry now, whether they're trainers or they're agents, they never played, and players just relate better to players. And I still consider myself like an athlete, and I still view myself in that regard, um, just in a different light. And I think players feel that. And I also will say that people in general, not just basketball players, but people in general, feel when you're authentic. You can't fake it. You can't fake when, you know, all the agent word is slimy, because there's a lot of agents who are in it for the wrong reasons. And people can feel that. Our company, we pride ourselves on integrity and character and doing things the right way. And that's why we're the best. And I think that gives me a leg up over people. And I think that helps me connect well with our players, is that authenticity.
With all these lessons, what's some advice you would have given yourself, maybe when you first started playing, maybe in college, maybe right when you graduated from college, that would have really helped prepare you to really live out some of these lessons that you've learned from when you were younger?
So for me personally, I would have drove home two things for me. One, don't take yourself so seriously. I'm a very serious guy. Like, I'm very ambitious and disciplined, and need to go to work, and I need to do this, and everything needs to, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. But I think that hurt me in a lot of ways, because I think as I became a professional, like 4 or 5 years into my professional career, I started to sort of let go a little bit, let go over the things that I couldn't control. And it not just made me a better player, but it made my life better, you know? So that's one thing, is don't take yourself so seriously. Life is short. And I think when you take yourself so seriously, you're so guarded and protected that often you can't connect well with other people. Sometimes relationships get fractured because, you know, I know in my case, some relationships did get fractured because I was so hard charging, and I was hard on my teammates, and I was hard on myself. And it hurt my relationship with my wife at times. And it hurt my relationship as a son, with my parents, just being so hard on myself. So don't take yourself so seriously. That would have been number one. Number two would have been, really, as early as you can, just invest in relationships with people, not just your career, any career you want to, or industry you want to go into, but life in general is about relationships, and relationships do weigh you down, because, if it's a real relationship, you want to be there for somebody emotionally to support them. So they do weigh you down in a sense, but they can also lift you up, lift you to greater heights than you can take on your own, than you can get to on your own. And I just really believe that. And that's what's led me to be where I'm at today, is the relationships. My buddy from Notre Dame, who's one of my best friends in the world, he wouldn't have recommended me to work with Gordon Hayward if he didn't know that I'm genuine and how I go about things and everything like that. So you may think that an interaction with someone is insignificant, but it may come back and to either help you or hurt you down the road. So one, don't take yourself so seriously. And two, really invest in your relationships. Put your phone down when you're talking to people. Call people, reach out to people, text people. Don't just send random emails just checking in, like really ask how people are doing, ask about their families, connect with their families, go get a bite to eat, go get a coffee with somebody. Investing in the relationships will lead to long-term success, no matter what you're trying to do. I think I could have done a better job of that when I was younger.
It's great advice, and I know I can relate to it. And when you started off, you said that a lot of people can, and that's definitely true. So many people can relate to what you just said. And Coach Kyle, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and I learned so much from hearing from you. And I related to you tremendously in hearing about how you've gone through in terms of working so hard to get to where you are, and really putting your best foot forward and being genuine. So thank you so much.
No problem, John. Anytime, man. You're a great interview. All right, you got a bright future. So keep it up, and hopefully I can help connect you to some other good interviews.
Thanks for listening to the Big Fellas Podcast. Check us out on all major social media platforms at Big Fellas Pod to join the chop up. You can also listen to us on every podcast platform on the planet. Stay tuned for the next episode, Big Fellas.